Nalamat Pomasu, the wind is calling me home. Umoko bona pueblo no be I feel it in my bones. Red out under my feet, ancestors bless my road. Every step I'm taking.
On the way to the airport, feeling a little nervous. Everything's gonna be okay. On the way to the airport, so that goes to New Jersey. From New Jersey will be Germany, and then Germany will be Nigeria. Everything's gonna be great, right? That's crazy how it took us just way back here. That's crazy. I didn't realize we were on this road. Anyways, I'll be back once I get to the airport. This is my Aunt Helen, and she's the oldest child. She's considered the Ada. My dad is the second oldest. He is basically the oldest son. And so it was me, my Aunt Helen, and my dad that all went to Nigeria together, although my Aunt Helen ended up staying 2 weeks longer than we did. Aunt Helen came over to my dad's from New York on December the 10th. On the morning of December the 11th, she rushed me out of the bathroom by knocking on the door, telling me to hurry up so that I could take her to the bank and to Walmart. At the bank, she caused a scene, and I found out later that that is the typical Aunt Helen's behavior. After we left the bank, we went to Walmart. At Walmart, she was yelling my name across aisles, and then she convinced me to purchase a hoodie that I knew I wouldn't need, but she was convinced that I was going to be cold on the plane, so I ended up purchasing it so that she would leave me alone about this dang hoodie. Okay, so later on, when we made it back to my dad's house, she ended up having to go to Walmart again. I can't remember why, but I took her to Walmart a second time to get some items. Okay, so later on that day, we were weighing all the bags that we had to carry just to make sure they were not over a certain limit. And Aunt Helen brought a cooked chicken from New York to New Jersey that she was going to need an extra bag for. And she basically told me that me and my dad will be helping her pay for the extra bag because she wasn't going to be the only person eating the chicken, although we didn't ask her to bring the chicken. We didn't know she was bringing the chicken. And honestly, I don't even think anyone ended up eating that damn chicken. So the next day, which was December the 12th, we made it to the airport that afternoon. We had an overnight flight. We had 6 carry-on bags, basically, considering that you had a purse and a regular bag. This basically ended up being 2 bags per person. So 6 carry-on bags. And then we had 7 check-in bags because we had the extra bag for the dang chicken. So I was really having to manage all the bags by myself because my Aunt Helen and my dad needed wheelchairs, which Aunt Helen made a scene about the wheelchair when we got there, basically yelling that she needed a wheelchair and she couldn't walk, although she actually can walk. And she told me that she behaves that way in order to get what she wants, basically. So, well, she can walk for short distances. It wasn't a situation where she really had to yell and create a scene for a wheelchair, let me say. So I was having to manage basically all of the bags. I mean, there were a few bags that could hang from the arms of their wheelchair, but other than that, I was actually having to manage all the bags by myself. Okay, so when we got to the counter, I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes. When we got to the counter, that extra bag, that 7th bag, which ended up not being the bag that the chicken was in, but still it was a 7th bag needed because of the chicken. And it was one of Aunt Helen's bag. It ended up being not only an extra bag, but also overweight. And it ended up being $400 for that bag. And Aunt Helen kind of sat back and looked like trying to basically convince them there's nothing that you can do. Can you take it out? Can you give us just trying to get them to change their mind and convince them. They was like, no, we let the other bags slide because they were overweight, which I'm assuming they weren't like 10, 15 pounds overweight. They're probably like 1 or 2 pounds overweight. But this particular bag, they said they couldn't let slide. It was too heavy. And mind you, one of Aunt Helen's other bags was too heavy. and I had to move stuff from her bag to my bag. And the things that I moved from her bag were not wrapped in bags and end up leaking in my bag and melting my plastic in my bag. But okay. So my dad began to argue back and forth with this guy about the extra bag and saying that they told us it was going to cost this amount. And the guy was trying to explain to my dad that, yeah, it was going to cost this much if it wasn't overweight as well. So we were not only paying for an extra bag, we were paying for an extra bag being overweight. And so the guy was trying to explain that to my dad, and they were going back and forth. It was like a war of egos. And I had to like step in between and tell my dad to calm down, tell the guy to calm down, because they were just trying to both get their point across and be like the winner or something. So it was a lot. And so my dad ended up being the one having to pay for this extra bag. Aunt Helen didn't pay for that bag, even though it was hers. So when we got on the plane, for some reason, this was a different plane than it was supposed to be originally. So my dad paid for extra leg room, which we did not get. And so they began to create a scene, and they basically told us to stay in a certain area of the plane until someone came to speak with us. And then in the meantime, everybody was getting on the plane. The plane was everybody sitting where they're supposed to sit. And then someone came to speak with us, and they basically told us there was no other room on the plane. It was a full plane, and either they could sit in that spot or they can get off the plane. And again, they were going back and forth with the people. And at one point, the people looked at me and asked me if they spoke English because they have accents. And I was telling them, yeah, they speak English. They understand what you're saying. And so I basically had to convince them to sit in the seats that was given to us. But because we were the last people to sit down in the seats, all the overhead bins were taken, except I think Aunt Helen was able to put one back up there. But everything else we had to kind of push under the seat in front of us. Okay, so sorry, just going through my notes again. So while we were on the plane, there was a time that I had to use the restroom. Mind you, I didn't even use the restroom that often. I didn't drink a lot because I knew the way we were sitting, my dad was on the outside, Aunt Helen was in the middle, and I was by the window. And so I didn't drink a lot of fluid because I didn't want to have to keep getting up. So there's one point I had to get up to use the restroom, and the people that was sitting in front of Aunt Helen had their seat reclined. Aunt Helen started banging on the back of their seat, saying that they needed to move because she couldn't get out, which was a lie. She could get out. And I was just looking at her like, what? Who does this? But she ended up getting out. But before she did get out, she asked me if I could crawl over her. And I was like, no, I can't crawl over you. What you think this is? So she ended up getting out and letting me out so I could use the restroom. Something else that I noticed on the plane, but it was only on the plane ride from New Jersey to Germany, is that I became nauseous or motion sick. I had motion sickness towards the end of that trip, but no other time. Something I noticed with Aunt Helen, when we're getting ready to land, she was over there praying. And I'm looking like her, you done created all this chaos and now you over there praying. And then when we landed, she started screaming to God, thank you, and singing. I was just looking at her. And then when we landed, I'm assuming Aunt Helen thought that maybe someone's going to steal her bag in the overhead bin, because she started hanging off the seat in front of us, yelling for someone to get her bag out of the overhead bin. Because mind you, because we had wheelchairs, we had to wait and be the last people off the plane. But she didn't want to wait to get her bag for some reason. She was just yelling for someone to get her bag.
The wind is calling me home. I feel it in my bones.
Okay, this is us flying into Germany and also us landing in Germany. If you look in the reflection of that window, you'll see Aunt Helen's hands go up and it goes down and clap, and that's when she was actually praying.
Shining so bright. I'm going back to Eluama, hey, to feel the sun and the culture. Hey, my village calling my name. Hey,
this is me after getting off the plane in Germany looking terrible. And this is the nail that I broke carrying all of the carry-on bags.
Leider klappt es hier nicht mit dem Hochbody, leider weil wir jetzt alle Fluggäste bitten zum Einsteigen zu kommen. And it's not working today with our hochbody. We can get all the passengers to be seated for boarding now.
I get a souvenir. Get it next time we come back. Tired.
Mama's laughter in the kitchen, firewood they glow, children running past me shouting, Auntie, welcome home. Palm trees waving slowly, river whisper truth. This land never forgets you, it always holds your roots. Chokunyere mike, I'm walking with grace. Every memory sweet, like a one blessed day. From the hills of the sweet water to the village square, my soul feel complete because I'm finally here. I'm going back to Elu Mama, to feel the sun and the culture. My village calling my name. Umokoko forever in my veins. Otogo spirit in my chest. Oh, ancestors guiding every step. Oh, this is where my story began. This is home. This is it. Wama Nala Nambudu. It getting in Nobara. Homenala de do. I hear them whisper softly. Nwanyi, welcome home. Footsteps on red soil, palm breeze on my skin. Everything I lost, I find again. Here in Eluama, my story.
So after we arrived to Port Harcourt, Nigeria, we went through immigration, and that was another crazy period. Aunt Helen and my dad, they complained about the time. They were to go. They were hungry. They didn't want to go through the process. It was just a whole thing. I actually snapped off at one time on my Aunt Helen because she was asking me to do this, that, and the immigration was calling me to do this, that, and she was talking to do this, that. And I was like, wait. I was like, I can't do all things at one time. I said I can only do one thing at a time, and they're calling me. I'm going over here. And then she kind of calmed down at that point. But then my dad, of course, he stirred up about, he was ready to go. What's taking so long? But me and my dad both obtained visa on arrival, so we had to complete paperwork and take pictures. Aunt Helen still had a Nigerian passport, so she was fine. And after we were able to get through that port and pick up our bags, it was complete chaos at that point. Everybody was like fighting to get their bags. There was no type of organization. And then there were people trying to get to us so they can carry our bags from the airport to the car. And it was like everybody was around asking this, can we do this, can we do this? And this guy trying to talk to me. He was like, and I was like, no, that's okay. And so we ended up going to the car. My uncle Iberi actually picked us up from the airport to take us to a hotel. So we stayed in that hotel in Port Harcourt for a while. Some things that I did write down is before we left for Nigeria, Aunt Helen had called her phone company to discuss like if she was able to use it while she was in Nigeria, and they told her she could only use it when she had Wi-Fi. And so in the vehicle on the way to the hotel, I was trying to explain that to her again. She would have to be on Wi-Fi to use it, or she'll be charged a lot of money if she tried to use her phone outside of that. And so my dad was telling her that he had explained that to her already as well. And then, of course, we had called before we left, but she just didn't want to listen. And so my dad became upset at her. And he told me, hold on, what did I put here? He told me to stop talking to her and that she will find out, she will have to learn. And then when I kept trying to explain it to her, he got upset. He was like, stop talking to her. So I thought that was kind of funny. Something else that I wrote down was when we made it to the hotel and we were trying to order food, which you'll see in a second. You'll see what I ordered to eat. When we made it to the hotel, I'm sorry, I got lost my train of thought. And we had called a restaurant, ordered food, and then my dad told me to call back, ask him to bring silverware. Well, when I called, I said, can y'all bring up silverware with the food? And they was like, okay. And my dad asked me what I told them. And I told him what I told them. And he was like, they don't know what silverware is. He said they will tell you, okay, because they don't want to appear as dumb. But he says they don't know what silverware is. They're going to be looking around for silver. And so my uncle Iberi had to call back and explain to them that we wanted some spoons and forks. So I thought that was funny as well. There was something else that I forgot to mention. At the airport, on the way out of the airport, rather, a woman came up to me. I didn't understand what she was saying. And I was like, do I supposed to know you? Because she came up to me like as if I was supposed to know her. And so I went to my Uncle Iberi and I was like, who is this woman? And he was like, he asked her what she wanted. And she was talking about basically she wanted to see if I wanted to exchange the US dollar for Naira. And so I was like, oh, okay, no, that's okay. I don't need anything. But it was just funny because I was like, do I supposed to know you? Because there was so many people around us that I didn't know who all came with my Uncle Iberi. I didn't know if it was him or someone that came with him because there was so many people surrounding us. Another thing as well, one of my luggage was damaged by, airport staff, and it was cracked, but I did get a replacement bag. All right, one last thing, I promise. Something else I forgot to mention, which I thought was pretty cool, was walking out of the airplane and into the airport, and there was like Nigerian staff walking down, and every one of them said, welcome to Nigeria, welcome to Nigeria. I don't know, I just felt like a moment of coming to America or something. And I don't know, I thought that was kind of cool.
I mean, I had to see oh, yeah. God is wonderful. And just will enjoy you every day, everywhere. That when we go to walk away.
There's a firefighter?
Oh, God, it's trailer.
Why have a light blinking like that?
Maybe it's blamed for people to clear the way. They are carrying goods or whatever. They're not firefighter here, I remember. Before I come
Oh, you don't have fire truck?
We have.
Okay.
There was a place, house was burning, they called a firefighter. When they called it, they said they don't have water in the tank. Manually, they take off the fire. Oh, God. They are there, they say they don't have water.
What is this kind of place?
You take it with the small longer. What? Perfect, you are ready, right? It's crazy. Oh, the gate is open by itself.
Somebody's open. You get by yourself.
I like the glow in my heartbeat, shining so bright. I'm going back to Eluama, hey, to feel the sun and the culture. Hey, my village calling my name. Hey, Umokoko forever in my veins. Otopo spirit in my chest, oh. Ancestors guiding every step, oh. This is where my story began.